world's greatest Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Mike Allen. As always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be talking about the Sam Raimi film Spider-Man 2.
Yes! Woo! And we're joined by G.I. Jolie.
I'm here.
Yeah! All right.
I'm always here.
Don't get too excited, okay. And also, a very special guest returning after, I believe it's been a 1.5 year gap. Kristen Siapis, right? 1.5 years.
Oh, has it been a 1.5 years?
I think so.
Do I get a comic book name yet?
Time.
Now that I've been on here a couple of times, do I get an actual comic book name?
We'll have to think of one. I don't know. Yeah. We usually like to have a pun, like some kind of play on words.
My comic book alter ego was always Siapis Star.
That's not bad.
I like that.
Siapis Star. Did you tell us that before?
Whatever.
Sounds familiar.
I thought that's how I was going to be captioned today. I thought I was going to be introduced as that. Well, that's fine. It's okay. Whatever.
Maybe. We'll think about that.
You hate it. It's okay if you hate it. We'll come up with a different one. You're like, yeah, that sucks. That's why I didn't use it. Siapis. That's why.
No. It's in the running, okay? Promise.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Runner up.
There you go. Yeah, fourth runner up. Okay. So anyway, we're here to talk about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, which features Dr. Octopus, and that's the only cast change. That's what distinguishes it. Everything else is the same as Spider-Man 1. And Josh, you're going to quickly tell us what happens in this film.
Yeah, so we catch up with Peter Parker, aka the Spider-Man. We kind of see that just as normal, his life is kind of falling apart. His love life isn't great with MJ because he kind of rejected her in the first film. Harry is kind of like distant with him because he's friends with Spider-Man, or he thinks he's friends with Spider-Man, and he also thinks that Spider-Man killed his dad. He's flunking out of school and not showing up because he's being Spider-Man too often. He can't pay for rent. Aunt May is like months behind due on rent, and the house is going to get foreclosed. Like, so much is happening. But one thing that kind of looks up for him is his professor, Dr. Kirk Connors. We kind of get a little bit of a cameo for this character, where he tells him, like, listen, you have one last chance to do this paper that you said that you're going to do on Dr. Otto Octavius before you're going to fail. So he decides that he's going to talk to Harry about it because Harry knows Otto through Oscorp, because they're like teaming up to do this science experiment. So Otto kind of becomes like a bit of a mentor for Spider-Man, or for Peter Parker. And they kind of have this like bond going on, and it all kind of leads up to this moment where they're doing this science experiment, which is like creating a fusion collider that's going to be an infinite power supply to power the entire world. And the fusion reactor overloads and explodes. Doc Ock fuses with the octopus-like mechanical arms that he's using to conduct this experiment, and Otto's wife tragically passes, and this kind of like turns him into Dr. Octopus, and the arms are now kind of in control. So he decides he's going to build the reactor again on his own, bigger and better this time. So he's got to fight Spidey a bit, steal some money so he has enough cash to like fund this thing, and all while Peter is slowly kind of losing his powers frequently, because he feels like his personal life and the superhero life can't get along. So his powers are kind of slowly fading, and it all comes to a head where Doc Ock actually kidnaps MJ, and he has to like take up the Spider-Man mantle again. He gets his powers back, and they have this like final fight on the docks with the new, bigger, better fusion reactor, and Spider-Man is able to kind of bring Dr. Octopus back to the Otto Octavius scientist persona, and he sacrifices himself in the Hudson and pulls the reactor down, and it explodes. And Peter and MJ finally, at the end of this film, are together again. She knows that he's Spider-Man, and it's kind of where we're at in the comics as well, where you're like, they're about to get married. We'll find out in the third one and stuff. So, yeah, it's a good one. It's one of the better Spider-Man movies, if not the best, in my opinion.
So yeah, I'll just quickly say it's considered the best one by most people. It apparently, I looked this up. It's apparently the third best selling superhero DVD of all time after Spider-Man 1 and Dark Knight, and then it goes Spider-Man 2. So 26 million copies sold. So yeah, it's a very popular movie. Personally, I've always thought Spider-Man 1 was better, and I'll give some of my reasons later on. But I do love Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus. I think he is a godsend. Like, I never would have dreamed this guy would, I never would have picked him to play this role, but I think he's perfect for it. So there's a lot of things I like about this movie, but again, probably not as good as the first one in my opinion. But Kristen, I know that in the last couple of years you have become a Marvel file, right? Like, you've marathoned all the Marvel Universe films. This is not technically MCU, although now it is.
Well,
yes, now
it is. Now it is, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your first impression or your 15th impression of this film? How many times have you seen this film?
I haven't seen it that often. Although I had like sort of a pedestrian knowledge of Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, like in the time that they were coming out. Now I feel like I have a deeper understanding and appreciation for Spider-Man. Now that I've seen, like, I think especially when we consider this film, like when it came out and its place in superhero movies in general, it was still like there's a reason why it's so huge, because it really, like, I think set the bar. I really like it because it has the comic book feel, like and don't hate me for this, but for the same reason that I like the Adam West Batman.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
because it's like cartoony, comic-y without being cheesy, and I think this one especially because it's such a good sequel. As a sequel to Spider-Man, we get like the origin story and like, this is Peter Parker, and it's like, if you've never seen anything before, this is what Spider-Man is. This is like that like after the happily ever after, like especially as we open up and everything's falling apart for Peter Parker, and then he has to fight this whole new villain. He's having like an identity crisis, and we still get like a lot of really beautiful, cheesy, comic-y moments in this film. That I think are really fun. Like there's a lot of fun in it, and then we still get a super like cheesy happy ending at the end, like with like a runaway bride and everything. Like it's just so shiny. I really dig that. I like that about it.
All right, G.I. Jolie, what about you? What's your take on this film?
It's definitely better than the first one for me. Also, question about Sam Raimi, and this is it took rewatchings. This is not my 15th. Maybe it is my 15th. I mean, I don't count. But does Sam Raimi do horror films?
Yes.
Specifically before this?
Yes.
Evil Dead 1 to 3, and then The Gift. Sorry, Kristen, what were you gonna say?
I have questions about this too. Specifically, there were two like really cinematic things that stood out to me that I was like, "What is this?"
Right. So it Kristen saying that it was it was sort of Adam West cartoony. I wanted to say that it was campy, but it wasn't campy.
Yeah, it was
like in a horror way though, like. And maybe we can elaborate more on this later, but like the scene where the arms are just alive and they kills the entire, sorry for our listeners, spoiler alert.
Right, yes.
For this 2004 film.
Right, for this 2004 film, spoiler alert, we're going to like just shut it off or fast forward or like skip to the next episode of Spider-Cast.
It's just all spoilers from here on out, sorry.
Yeah, so every close-up of there's so many close-ups of screaming faces.
Yes, this is exactly. I was like, it's like every, what is the name of that actress? Her name is out of my head, but the scream that's been recorded, that's been used in like every horror movie.
Oh,
there were
is it from
so many
Psycho?
takes of that. Yeah, well, yes, but like like the like that moment. It happens like 3-4 times in the movie. It was so beautiful.
Right.
And also the whole focus, like I don't know what that's called, but when they do the
zoom.
like this zoom thing. Yes.
Many times, yes.
So many. And I so much that it was almost distracting by the end of it. I was like, oh, it's another moment. We're going to do another Zoom thing. Like, it was so great.
Yeah, like maybe about the third time they cut to a location where there's just like people you've never seen before. Like there's a girl sitting in an office building and she like quickly looks up and like you can hear it in the distance, like a stomping, like a T-Rex, but it's not.
Right.
She goes to the window and it's Doc Ock like climbing up, and it crash zooms to her face, and she's just screaming. Like,
yes,
he hasn't really busted through the wall yet, or then he does bust through the wall, and she screams even louder.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't stop. And then when Spider-Man, they kind of do like a heroic version of it where like Spider-Man will be swinging in or away from action, and he'll happen to be swinging by the face of a woman who is just in utter awe.
There's also a shot where he swings into the camera, and then right at that moment, 2 girls come into the shot. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Or they walk,
because
and they look up. Yeah.
It's from their torso up. It's very
Right.
distracting.
Right.
But I noticed this a lot. Like I really love Sam Raimi's style. He does this really great thing where and it's all practical. Most people, like, again, I think I mentioned earlier that I was watching 1917, but like where the camera is moving forward or moving with the character, and people will cut across their eye line. It's most people, in order to be able to navigate the camera better, will actually just digitally place people in the way. And in reviewing 1917, that they did it a lot because the visual effects on a smaller screen are more apparent. But like on this one, it just looks so cool, and it's always the same angle. Or it's always the same angles. Sometimes they'll just be standing right in front of the camera, and they'll just cover the entire screen, but the focus will still be on the main character. And like, I don't know a lot of directors that do that, or do that frequently as Sam Raimi does in his film. It's like every shot. Yeah. It's crazy, and it makes it feel. It gives it that like comic book feel, because I feel like comic book panels are sort of composed with those sorts of things in mind, like sort of like tertiary elements.
And I feel like there's a lot of moments like that where he gives us like a snapshot, like it, and that's what I think makes it feel like there's color and lighting and movement and all those things that affect it as well. But like there's so many moments that are like, that's a panel, that's a panel, that's a panel. Like where you see it, it really is like jumping off of the page.
Yeah. So my first impression, my 15th impression is like, I love this film. I still think that No Way Home is the best one. Oh, no, that's a lie. I think that Into the Spider-Verse is the best one.
That's my favorite too.
Yeah.
Then I think that this is the second best one. And then No Way Home is the third best. Yeah.
I think No Way Home is still a bit higher than this one for me, only because it brings together everything and you have to appreciate that. But Spider-Verse is probably my number one. I could watch Spider-Verse 100 times every episode. Like I just love it.
Yeah. It's like Titanic. Where you see like different things every single time, and you wish the ending wasn't, what's going to happen, and whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, anyway, sorry.
So
that's
Josh,
the first impression.
We'll get your impression.
What about Josh?
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, it was great watching this again. I was like 8 when this came out, and like this was my thing. This was the best thing to ever happen to me in 2004. So rewatching it again was super nostalgic. Alfred Molina, like I think Mike said, is like probably the best actor in any of these movies. Like, he's just so freaking good. Even like up there with Willem Dafoe. His relationship with Peter is so great and so believable in this. And it's very quickly that we have to believe that they're buddies and they're close, and you buy it immediately. It's so great. And I don't think it would be as possible if it wasn't for Molina's charm. It's great.
Yeah.
And I think that gives you the heartbreak when his wife dies. Right. And it really, like, I don't know how much of his wife's death gives us like an arc for his villain origin story. I think I almost want more for him there. But the heartbreak of when she passes is like, you feel that deep, like the poetry thing, and like that he's already made such a connection there.
Yeah. And it's very key for the ending as well, for you to feel sad when he ends up sacrificing himself at the end of the film. Yeah. Because even though we're seeing him for most of the film be a bad guy, we're still hoping for him to go back to where he started at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And completely unintentionally, it's a perfect setup for No Way Home too. Like after seeing No Way Home, and now I'm watching this now for the first time, I had like new heartbreak for No Way Home again. Like after reconnecting with this. Yeah. I just cut you off, Mike. Like
no,
twice,
it's okay. It's just because lately we've read a whole bunch of Dr. Octopus stories, and I feel like at least in the ones that we're reading, they don't quite get them right. And I'll criticize superhero movies as much as the next person, right? Till the cows come home. But sometimes superhero movies do things where you're like, why didn't they ever think of that in the comics? And with this movie, I mean, the comics, they didn't really have that relationship. As far as I know, Peter and Dr. Octopus didn't have it. But this movie, and they're only together like, 3 scenes? Yeah. But in like a very small amount of screen time, they established so much. And like you said, it's like Alfred Molina is such a good actor. He has just a couple scenes, he meets Peter, sits down with him, they have tea or whatever they do. And then I think in the next time we see him, he has the accident, right? So there's not much time to develop it, but they do it. And they do it right. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Like, making him the mentor is great. Having the inhibitor chip is such a great way. It's like a small little like MacGuffin almost to bring him back at the end, right? Like a little trinket that's a reason why he's a bad guy, right? And I think it's super smart to have that like Jekyll and Hyde thing, and it's also amazing that it works again. Like in the sequel, no, in Spider-Man 2, because it happened in Spider-Man 1 with Norman, and Green Goblin,
good
right?
Good point. Yeah.
So it's it's great that they were able to kind of take that and keep it fresh and make it work for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, like, for the whole trilogy, really, that's the like, each villain is not. It's not like a over the top evil villain. Like each one has their humanity, and you see them as a whole person. I think you see their desire not to really be a villain, their unwillingness to be evil.
Yeah. You're right. Like if you compare them to the Joker and Batman, the Joker's like a psychopath, right? But with all of these villains, you're right. Even Sandman is really a good guy, and in the new movie, he really is a good guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Electro's kind of a gray area. Venom he's a little bit more, I mean, he at least has a logical motivation, right? In Spider-Man 3. So yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
And what I really love about Spidey's Rogues Gallery is that they're always connected to him somehow in some personal way, which kind of gives that like second, like deeper level of like stakes that Peter Parker has to save this person, not just kill him to save the city. He's got to kind of like rehabilitate them, bring them back, because they're all somehow like connected to him.
And that's why I would have... go ahead.
There's that caveat, like they can't just be destroyed.
Yeah.
They have to be they have to be preserved. It's like Batman's like, I can't kill anyone. Like it's like we have to save them. There's something good in them at the end of the day.
And also I would have loved to have seen The actor, oh geez, I had the cast up here. Where did it go? The actor that played
Kurt Connors.
Kurt Connors. What's his name? His name is Dylan Baker. I would have loved to have seen him become the Lizard, right? Because you develop.
Yeah.
It would have been so cool to see him as a professor for 2 movies, and then if he would have become the Lizard in Spider-Man 4, but we didn't get to see that. We saw a different Lizard, but it would have been cool to see this one. So let's talk about a couple of the. I mean, we've already talked about Alfred Molina. We all love Alfred Molina. I don't know if there's any. To be honest, was Elizabeth Banks in Spider-Man 1? I don't even remember.
It was super quick. She barely had anything. It's pretty similar to this film.
Okay,
where she was
it was scenes.
Yeah. I think the only other new character would be Jonah Jameson's son.
Right, good point. And he was kind of a blank. I didn't really.
Does he
make an
even?
impression.
Yeah,
he's like a paper doll. He doesn't even really.
Yeah, it could have been anybody sitting there.
Yeah.
An astronaut, the first to play football on the moon.
Yeah.
Like in the most American patriotic move ever. Like, this is perfect.
And, you know what? We were also robbed because I don't know if you guys know this, but John Jameson goes on to become the Man-Wolf in the comics. So we didn't get to see the Man-Wolf. Yeah, maybe one day.
What a bummer.
Right? Yeah.
Well, darn.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone else is pretty much the same. I'll just say that if I'm going to compare this to the first one, I think that Aunt May probably got more screen time in this, which I thought was fine because I think she's a great Aunt May. Rosemary Harris, thought she was excellent. Kirsten Dunst got a lot of screen time in this. She was great. Now here's the thing though. Here's one tiny weakness in this film. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson does get more screen time because in the first, if you go back and watch Spider-Man 1, he was only in like literally 3 scenes. I couldn't believe it. He has more screen time in this one, but he's not as funny, I don't think. That's why I think it was different writers this time around, and that's why I think in at least one aspect the first one was better. Did anyone else notice that?
I think they gave him the sequel treatment, and whenever there's like a sequel and they're like, wow, that really worked the first time, let's do more of that harder. And so like everything that he does is like it's faster and it's like
screw
you, give me a bagel
problem.
Like it's the whole exactly. Yeah. it's like a photocopy of a photocopy at this point. Like he's just I think I thought it was like if you accept that that's what it's going to be, then it's funny because he becomes a caricature of himself. It doesn't really, I think there's a missed opportunity because of like his son and his connection. Like there's much deeper story that we could have gotten into. But I mean, there's moments like you're fired, you're unfired. I need you to go do this social event. Like the social event is also me. It's my son. Like that's hilarious. That's very funny. I liked it.
There's also the meme. Remember the laugh or the pause and then the big laugh that's become a meme now. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
That was really
great.
good.
There's also a deleted scene as well with J.K. Simmons or J. Jonah Jameson trying on the Spider-Man costume and pretending to like shoot webs around the office and like jumping on the desk. That I completely forgot that was even a deleted scene. I was expecting it for some reason.
Well, okay, so I watched Spider-Man 2.1 and that was incorporated into the movie.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
You can watch 2.1 on... I watched it on, I think... What was it? Crave? I don't even remember where I watched it, but it wasn't on Disney+. This is the only Spider-Man movie not on Disney+, I think.
Netflix?
Or Netflix. It's not on Netflix. Yeah. Really weird, yeah. But I'll just say that there was that. There was a whole bunch... Like, watching this movie a couple days ago was like watching it for the first time because there was so many things I forgot. Partly because there were deleted scenes, but partly because I just hadn't seen this one as much as I saw Spider-Man 1. So it was kind of refreshing, but I don't know. I think the other weird thing about this movie was the pacing was awkward because whenever... This is a problem that I think plagues like almost all superhero movies where you develop Peter Parker and Spider-Man, his story, but then you always have the parallel of story with the villain. And they almost never quite mesh. And I feel like in this movie, it's like you're developing Mary Jane and Peter, and then it's like, well, we got to cut over to Dr. Octopus, but it never feels like an organic segue. Did anyone else feel that way? G.I. Jolie, did you notice that?
Yeah, like just the tiniest bit though. There just was a lot. There were a lot of, like, there was like an A, B, C, and D plot, and they all were happening at once. So they have to kind of get through them and, like, make sure each like happen logically, one after the other.
Right.
Which I think they did for the most part, like, pretty successfully. It wasn't clunky, but it wasn't smooth and unnoticeable either. However, when they had to transition into a scene, like when we were talking about characters or actors, he was in the first one, so it's not like he's new. But to me, I think there's way more of him in this film, and that's Harry Osborn.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That's the worst part of this movie, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, like James Franco, like, can anyone...
All of that, though, is to set up Spider-Man 3. I feel like everything with him is just laying the groundwork. Like, I don't know when they released or signed contracts for this stuff, but, like, obviously they knew Spider-Man 3 was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They set it all up. But, like, every scene of his was like, why are you here? Why are you here?
So
it's just for the
wooden
story.
Why are you yelling? Like,
He's
why are
very
you...
angsty.
After the accident in the Oscorp building where the fusion reactor explodes and kills people and the building collapses, we see James Franco go, "That's it. I'm ruined.
What? And then
my whole career down the drain." It's like,
and then he's like,
Are you
all
upset?
I have
What's
left is
happening?
Spider-Man now. All you have left
all
is
I have
Spider-Man?
left is Spider-Man.
But, like, there wasn't even any setup for that moment. Like, there was just, like, we knew, okay, you lost your dad, you're kind of mad, Spider-Man. And the whole opening credits to this had, like, the watercolor effect of, like, what happened in Spider-Man, so you kind of knew what had happened. It kind of gave you the setup. But then there was no mention, like, there wasn't really an establishing of him being like, Spider-Man is my quest, I must get after him.
Right.
Like not in this in the way that J. Jonah Jameson has it. And then in this moment, it was like, well, I guess all I have left is Spider-Man now.
It's almost as if they had filmed an entire movie and forgot that James Franco was in it, and then went back and refilmed all of these scenes.
That sounds like how I do my movies. Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Like,
Like you have like a spare weekend. Okay, come on, let's get them all done in one day, right?
Yeah. Like the scene where like Dr. Octopus goes back to him to get more tritium.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And like I'm like, what? Wait, what? Why is this happening? Like, why doesn't he just steal it? Why does he go to Harry? Like that was
like,
the one scene
hey,
that
boss.
made me think about it. Yeah.
Hey boss, can I have some more of this stuff?
Yeah, and he like dangles him over the edge, and like Harry's freaking out, but he's already brooding anyway, and like probably hearing voices at this point by now. But like, that scene. When Mike asked me if I had noticed about the editing, it wasn't so much the editing that I noticed, but it was just like weird scenes, like plots, like almost as if the Harry Osborn Doc Ock was a D plot or an F plot, and they like
there was a lot.
Yeah, and they were just like, oh yeah, wait, we have to like intercut that one in. This is where it most logically fits in, so we'll do that there.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
and then it cuts to him like going to Mary Jane's play.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like, especially because I watched the 2.1 version with deleted scenes added back in, it felt like there was even more stuff where you're like, why is that here? It doesn't feel like it belongs here, but it's like, well, we got to fit it in somewhere, so we'll just put it here. And there was even all that subplot F with the landlord and the landlord's daughter.
Yeah.
Right.
Like flirting and then giving them cookies or whatever it was. It's just like
cake. Why?
The cake scene was very strange.
Cake, yeah.
Yeah.
So weird. Like, and why doesn't he, like, why are we having this scene at all? Is he meant to, like, end up with her as a romantic interest?
I was rooting for Ursula.
Why is she so, like, hot and naked and holding cake? Like, why, what is the point of, like, why does she set the pot on fire when she's like, I gotta set the pot, it's Peter Parker. Like, what is happening with this girl? And is she being held captive by these men at the table? Who obviously are like some like scary Eastern European dudes. Like, what is going on with these? I don't even. I don't understand why that was so... Like, why are we dedicating so much time to this? Like, if I was building this movie, am I absolutely... Like, no, we need the scene with the guys at the table.
Yeah,
we can't establish that he needs to pay his rent in any other way.
Right.
We need to add in the hot daughter of the mean landlord. And we also need to do, like, full production on the importance of being earnest. I need to see Kirsten Dunst on the stage in a hat and a wig. Why are we doing that? Like, why? It's so like, we can meet her at the stage door. Why are we wasting time on this? Like, go work on James Franco's character, please.
No, you're 100% right. It's just like they're sitting there going, you know what would be a cool thing? Why don't we do this idea? And I've been in that situation where you're either writing or you're on set and you're like, let's do this idea. Like, I can think of this cool joke with the girls setting the pot on fire. But that's the first thing the editor would cut because they're like, this has nothing to do with the story. And you're right. By including it, it makes your brain go, oh, well, that's going to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Peter and her are going to hook up, and that's going to have conflict with Mary Jane. But no, it doesn't.
No.
She just disappears. You never see her again, right? So why is it even in there?
Thanks for the cake.
Yeah.
They even spend time together, and it seems like maybe the cake is a metaphor for something else, and that it isn't. And it's like,
right.
But where's the payoff? Can I add, if we're going to talk about crossing over, has Kristen ever done any comic book reviews with us?
I did
the Spider-Man one. Yeah, okay.
I haven't read a lot of, but I did one.
Okay, cool. Well, now that we know that his landlady is Mrs. Muggins, I'm mad that there's no Mrs. Muggins.
How hard would it be, right? Why are we not including that? Why are we inventing this whole other side plot with a cake and a girl that goes nowhere when we have material to draw from? It's not like you're drawing this character or this out of nothing. Like, you could just read some of the things and pull something out of there. Like, the stories already exist.
Yeah, like we already have very delightful distractions in the form of Bambi, Candy, and Mandy. Like,
right.
Why change the source material? If we're gonna shoehorn characters in, why would you shoehorn? Like, why would you unshoehorn 4 very delightful female characters in favor of this like weird Eastern European man's poker game?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't necessarily mind them changing it, but it just felt like very awkward and kind of shoehorned together. But here's the thing: is I do know that this movie is considered the best one out of the 3, and you could argue maybe the plot is better, but I want to talk about a couple of moments of dialogue that really struck me as bad. Now, I thought that most of Aunt May's dialogue was fine. Like the scene between Aunt May and Peter when Peter admits that he was the one that was responsible was really well done. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm watching like Little House on the Prairie as a kid. Like, this is so good. But anyway, but the scene where...
Sorry, I got off
the pinnacle of acting. Absolutely. Little House on the Prairie. Right. I agree completely.
That's the bar right there. But the scene where Mary Jane... Okay, he tells Mary Jane... Or no, she sort of comes on to him in the backyard, and then they have another scene, they have another scene, they have a scene. Then when she decides to have coffee with him... Yeah. And she's like, I just have to know if you love me. And he's like, I do not. And it just hangs in the air like...
And then they get hit by a car.
It's just so,
and then a car comes flying sideways through the window. You know what I think? This is what I think about all these subplots, is that there's actually a really beautiful version of this movie where like I'm just gonna say this, where you cut out all the action. Like, there's all the emotional moments are so disconnected from all of the action moments. And that's such a prime example of like, there's an opportunity to have like a real emotional connection and to go on a journey with these characters. And we're going to not only like shit the bed at the last minute with it, but we're also going to literally try and hit them with a car. A sideways car is going to come flying through the scene just to disrupt all of this.
But
I agree.
I honestly would rather have them had the car come in before Peter delivers the line. So
yes.
So it could be like, what is he going to say? And then the car comes in. But to have him deliver that really bad, I don't. Or what was it, Josh? Was it I do not? Or I don't, whatever it was.
Don't.
It was just like,
then it was just like linger. Don't.
And then after that, didn't she say, okay, fine, but can you just kiss me?
She says, I don't believe you.
Oh yeah,
that's right. I just have to know something.
The kiss.
Well, the kiss is because
Of
the kiss is because she at this point she's suspecting that Peter is Spider-Man.
Right.
I don't think so. I think it's her Cinderella glass slipper moment. I don't know whether or not she actually thinks it's him.
No, I
think she's hoping that if she kisses him, it will be him. I don't think she actually suspects it. I think she's just trying the slipper on all the men in the land.
You know
I think she does because she asks her fiance to do it, like to kiss her upside down. Remember in the apartment when she says, "Put your head backwards." She's trying to see if it feels the same as when she kissed Spider-Man in the first film. So when she's asking Peter in the cafe, she is thinking like, I want to see if that spark is there, and I have a feeling that you're Spider-Man.
I think yes to the first and no to the second. I think that she's going like, I had this magical moment with Spider-Man and nothing will ever... It's like, this is her bachelorette party. Like, nothing will ever compare to that moment. So I'm just going to like, and then she kisses whatever his name is, whatever his face, Jameson. And it's like, oh, well, I guess we have to get married anyway, though. And then she's with Peter and she really hopes that Peter, I don't think she's hoping that he's Spider-Man. I think she's hoping that he has the spark. I think Spider-Man is like, regardless, she really wants to kiss him. But then she doesn't like make him go upside down to kiss him. She just leans in like she's going to kiss him. And then she gets hit with a car.
I think
would have been...
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It would have been cool if, like, what Kristen was saying is true. And then she realizes, and you kind of see on her face, like, that they're mid-kiss, and she opens her eyes, and she realizes that he's Spider-Man.
Yes.
That's
and
a cool
then the car
opportunity.
flies.
Yes, exactly. Yes. You have to have it interrupt something, but it doesn't. It's like it falls after this really flat moment. It's weird. But you know what? I gotta weigh in with what Kristen's saying. I'm gonna add to it. I think you're both onto something, but yes, I think it's more like Cinderella. Like she's like, she's testing everyone. So she's either testing everyone to find the spark, or she's testing everyone to find out who's Spider-Man. So she could have been thinking, maybe my fiance's Spider-Man. Nope, he's not Spider-Man. Maybe Peter Parker's Spider-Man, right?
Okay, hold on. He was playing football on the moon at the time, I think.
That's true. Yeah. So they were not. Okay, you're right.
Well, I guess it's maybe because I already have the knowledge of MJ figuring it out in the comics before she says it, and there's a point where she looks at him and says, you are different. Something is different about you. And then at the end of the film, she does say, I feel like I always kind of knew.
Yeah.
When he turns around and looks at her.
I think subconsciously she might suspect it, but I don't think she knows.
No, I don't think she knows necessarily for sure. I think that we're led to believe that she has some sort of sneaking suspicion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that's a myth. Like, I think that either she kisses him in the cafe and then she has that moment and we get to go there with her, and then in the moment where his mask is off and she realizes that it's him, we get to celebrate that, like, oh my god, I was right, yes it is you, and there's like it becomes more joyous, it becomes more of a meal that moment. Or she doesn't know, and she really doesn't know, and then when she sees him with his mask off, there is an opportunity for shock and surprise and disbelief and all of, like, there's so much more of a meal there to go on that journey with her in that moment. But both moments end up falling flat because there's that like, oh, well, I guess you don't love me. Well, maybe let's kiss. And then they get hit by the car. And then later on, well, I always kind of knew. Like, it's, I don't know. I just wanted like more. I think we could have hit that home more.
You know what? And what Josh mentioned a minute ago, in the comics, the way they do it is, around this time that we're reading these comics in the 80s, Spider-Man reveals his identity to Mary Jane, and she's like, oh yeah, I always knew. Like, for the past 200 comic issues of the comic, I've always known. And I always thought that killed the scene because the impact, it's like you said, is you want to feel the celebration of either, oh my God, I had no idea, or, oh, this confirms my suspicion. But to just be like, oh yeah, I always knew. It's, oh, okay, well, it kind of fell flat. That's how I thought about it, but anyway. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is paying off, regardless of however we want to interpret it. It's really paying off better in the film than it is the comic, including, but not limited to, also Robbie Robertson knowing that he is Spider-Man.
Right, yes.
Because they hint at it in the film.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, hey, aren't you friends with Spider-Man, Peter?
Right.
Yeah.
And it just, the camera holds in Robbie's face for just a second too long. And you're like, aha, I knew it. And it like, to me as a person who's reading the comic books thinking, no, Robbie doesn't know. It's like, no, he 1000% knows. And he's not saying a word.
I kind of wish we had a moment where he finds Peter and says, hey, maybe you should give this back to your Spider-Man friend, and like hands him the suit pack, and kind of like we kind of get the feeling that he knows and is giving it back. That would have been a really great moment for that kind of like side character in the movies. Like he really is like C list character.
Yeah.
Which one is he in the movie? Am I like not remembering his name properly?
He's the black, like J. Jonah Jameson's second in command, the black guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is when he does actually go get the suit back. Are they not all like in the room? Did you catch that moment?
Yeah, but I think he snatches it with his web. I think.
And then leaves the web and a note?
It's Sam Raimi. Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense.
Like, just have them step outside the room. It was really, like, it's a nice shot. I like the like, I don't know, the steel, and then the thing, and then the note, and then, like, those are all great. That's a great, like, moment, right? Like, that's a panel moment. But, like, they're standing right there. Give me something where they, like, look over there, or, like, leave the room or something. I don't know.
You're totally right.
Like, make it a complete thought. It just didn't really close the circle for me.
Okay, so... Oh, go ahead, Jolie. Were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I agree with Kirsten, because, like, they had gone full circle with Peter throwing away his costume in a dumpster, giving us that classic cover. And then they had to figure out a way for Peter to get his costume back after he decides he wants to be Spider-Man again. So, yeah, I feel like it could have been a little more thought out. I like the idea of Robbie potentially giving it back to him.
It's
if
a good
we had
idea.
films to do over again.
Yep.
That'd be cool.
So one scene we haven't talked about, it's probably the most famous scene in the movie, is the big train scene where Peter Parker or Spider-Man stops the train. Now, I thought it was a good scene. I thought it was fine. But I still cannot forgive them for having Spider-Man take off his mask in front of like 200 people, and we just expect them all to just keep his secret. I know that we want to see Tobey Maguire's face, which I don't mind, but it is ridiculous, and it just took me out of the scene. Did that bother you guys at all?
It's one subway car. It's not 200 people.
Yeah.
It's like 20 people.
Well, 20
but
people.
They all agree like that, like, oh, we'll keep your secret, Spider-Man. Oh, he's just a boy. Like that whole, I don't know. I think we're supposed to see, like, because J. Jonah Jameson spends all of his time trying to turn public opinion against Spider-Man. So to have that moment where, you know, the nameless public is on his side and they believe in him. But I agree. I thought it was I think it disrupts it. Like, I like having the convention that we don't know who he is and nobody knows who he is. Now you have like another 25 people, 30, 40, 200 people in the world that know who he is, that know his face. And like, I don't know, was that necessary?
Well, he I just to say one thing, Josh. Even when he's standing on top of the building and his powers are running out and he pulls his mask off, there could be people with cameras in the building right next to him. It just drives me crazy. Anyway.
I guess so, but like he also flies into his apartment in and out of his apartment as Spider-Man every day.
Okay,
but
that's
in the
true.
comics and in the movies, like,
okay, that's
I
true.
feel like at some point you have to like suspend your disbelief.
Okay,
but I loved that scene. I liked the fact that they're going to keep his secret. Like, he sacrificed his life to try and save them. He like put his body through hell. Like, he literally fainted after stopping the train. It was moving so fast. He had no energy at all. It was just like a couple of people. And like, what would they say to the public? He's a kid. He's a kid in New York. That's about
brown hair.
it. He's got brown hair. He's a white guy with brown hair. Good luck.
I'll totally give you that. And yes, there's 8 million people in New York, but he does work for the Daily Bugle.
Yeah, but do you know the photographer for the Windsor Star?
Here's the thing:
Dax Melmer.
Is that at the very least, you know what they could do? They could say, "Hey, I'm going to go to the Daily Bugle. Hey, Daily Bugle, you know that guy who takes pictures of Spider-Man? I want to talk to him because I know who Spider-Man is." Then when that guy walks up and it's the same guy that you just saw on the bus or the train, you go, "Uh-oh," right?
It's possible.
I'm just saying.
It's possible.
I guess it is possible. I just feel like him sacrificing himself and then Doc Ock showing up and kidnapping him, like he still like saved them. I don't know. It's just like I like that moment. I like the whole you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. I love that like New York like stereotype that they always pump into the Spider-Man movies. I really like that moment.
You know what I would have liked to have seen too? Okay, this would have saved it for me. Is if at the end of the movie we saw Peter Parker on his bike, and then he runs into some kids that recognize him, and they look at him and they're like, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna keep your secret, don't worry. So at least there's a little bit of follow up, but whatever. Anyway.
I thought it was funny in that scene that he I mean, there's this like beautiful peaceful moment where like he has fainted and they're all carrying him, you know, figuratively and literally, and then like next scene he's up on his feet, he's back to 100% and he is busting Doc Ock's butt. Like, do you get a snack in there? Like, did you get a cheeseburger on the way to the docks? Like, how are you holding up? Like, you were just not breathing. This is not even like the next day.
Yeah, I know.
haven't had
He took
a
a little
glass of
nap.
water.
I had a sip of water. I'm good. Not that it's ever going to be totally believable, but it was just the whole point was that he was completely exhausted. And then he was like, wow, your belief in me is what helps me to go on. And then he just goes and saves the day. Big final battle.
Well, yeah, because then it was really another really awkward moment where, he had the big drama, and then Doc Ock's back and knocks him out, and then kidnaps him. Because that's when he then wakes up, right, at that warehouse thing or whatever that is, like on the water. So that was kind of awkward too.
Well, he wakes up he brings him to Harry.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right. Okay, that's right.
That was the moment. That's the moment where like he wakes up and he's like in it. He's like 100%. He's not groggy. We're not having like a Princess Bride, I'm half dead moment. We're like, he's like ready to go right from the moment he opens his eyes. Like, wow, that little snappy nap really helped you, I guess. Let's do this.
Okay, well, is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Any favorite moments or anything? I mean,
I think that Aunt May, Everybody Loves a Hero speech is maybe better than with great power comes great responsibility. Like, I felt more from that speech than I did from Uncle Ben's. Like, I don't know, that one, watching it again now, is going to stick with me more. Yeah. Because it's both teaching Peter a lesson, but it's also like a moment for her to forgive him, right? And kind of take what Uncle Ben said and kind of like twist it around in a new way to kind of almost teach Peter that same lesson from the first one. It really is, with great power comes great responsibility. It's, you know, if everybody loves a hero, like if you're not being a hero and doing the best you can, then what are you doing? And it's, I loved that moment when she's moving out of the house. It's probably like the highlight coming out of watching it this time.
Yeah, that was the moment I was going to highlight too, that's for sure.
I think that, and that also shows, like, because I was comparing this to current Marvel Studios films, and not only is Sam Raimi, because we talked about his style, the action and the jump and the crash zooms and the fast editing, but there was a lot of time spent on these supporting characters, right? Like just standing around talking, and I got to give the movie props for that, right? Because there was like huge gaps in the film where there was no action. And I really like that they let the characters just develop, right?
Yeah, for most of the film, we don't see Spider-Man.
Right.
Like, I think Spider-Man, I think Peter's in costume in the first one than this one. And that one was the origin before he was even Spider-Man. Like, they really, I think that taking away his powers and having Peter reflect was good for the film. It also adds to, like, the plot and the story and the lesson that that's being taught, both with Aunt May and his love life and with Doc Ock. Like, it's it was interesting to see. I feel like most moments like that where it's like I'm giving up being Spider-Man are always like, oh, okay, again, all right, well, I guess we'll watch this story or read this again. But for some reason it was never boring or like slow at any point. But I think it was because they just focused on his character and developing like what was going on with him. And it completely worked for me.
Jolie, did you have a favorite scene or moment you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, when he calls Mary Jane after he misses her play and he's just speaking to her answering machine.
Yeah,
and like I didn't really
good.
think anything of it until like I watched it again today while I was packing. Because I was like, whatever, it doesn't hurt to watch the movie again. It'll only benefit my memory. And there was one point where he runs out of time and he has no change to put into the telephone. I almost the payphone. I almost forgot what that was called. Jeez. He has no change, so he keeps talking, and he goes, "Here's the thing, Mary Jane, I'm Spider-Man. Like that's why I can't be with you." And it's like this would just all go away. This problem that you have, the problem that you have with each other, would just go away if you could tell her that. It would just be better if you could communicate better, and that's always been his problem. And I'll harp on it until the cows come home. But the film is such a better. It really captures the essence of what the comic books were trying to tell us, and it distills it in the best way possible. Like the entire conflict between in his mind of being Spider-Man and him. And Peter Parker, and why he is trying to come to terms with like whether he wants to be one or the other. At some times he thinks he can do both, and then at those times he also thinks he can be with Mary Jane. Like the whole internal conflict that he has, it is so much more mature and presented better in the films than it is in the comics. We have gone through almost 10 years of comics, and the film does in like 20 seconds what the comics took 10 years to tell us. And they didn't even tell us, like, it took 10 years and it's still not doing a great job. It's doing like an okay job. But like in the span of that one little phone conversation that he has with himself, it's heartbreaking. You hear the heartbreak. Right. And I don't know if it's a testament to like the writing of the film or Tobey Maguire's acting or both.
It's not Tobey Maguire's acting.
Stop, Kristen. Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire is sent from above, and that's my final point. He is such a good freaking actor.
Don't let Robert Pattinson hear you say
that.
I'm
sorry, Robert. Yeah, no, but Tobey Maguire. I dreamed about Spider-Man, a Spider-Man movie my whole life. Okay, and when Spider-Man 1 came out with Tobey Maguire, it exceeded all my expectations, okay? I could not believe how good he was. The movie was great, but Tobey Maguire was far exceeded all my expectations, okay?
Listen, I'm pro Tobey Maguire. Of all of the Spider-Man, unless we're, like, if we can leave out No Way Home, which is on its own level, because it has so much into it. It combines so much that it can't be considered solely, like, one of the newer versions of Spider-Man, because it incorporates all of the things. Tobey Maguire's still my favorite. I'm with you. But I just don't think that he offers the depth of emotion. But that's what I want to say about this, is that, like, it really is two movies. Like, it's still, like, I think when we look at it in the time that it came forward, like, in, what is this one, 2004?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In 2004, for a superhero movie, we have not yet experienced the world of the MCU. Like, I think even as the MCU has developed, when you compare, like, Iron Man to what they offer today, there's so much more fully developed characters. There's more emotional moments that are integrated into the action moments. This is still, I think, in, like, a binary universe where, like, we make emotional movies for girls and we make action movies for boys. And this movie was like had a lot of those emotional moments, but they aren't connected to the action moments at all. Just the metaphor of, like, the car coming through the window during that emotional moment is, like, we have one complete emotional scene. That scene could have ended there. Like, they could have gone to black. They could have gone to something else entirely. The car was, like, a clear beat that started a completely new scene, a completely new situation for them. And I think, like, when we have these moments where Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker is on the phone and having this emotional moment, it's like we're not really set up to feel the depth of what he's feeling. Like, and even the comics that came before that, this was still more evolved than that. Like, the fact that this came in this moment, it was actually a really big deal that he was showing such depth, even though we want more and we want it to be, you know, just tell the truth, Spider-Man. Yeah. Let's see the struggle.
Well, here's the thing. I was actually leading up to another favorite moment of mine with Tobey Maguire. This is one of the best scenes in the movie for me. And it actually, like, for some reason I thought it was in Spider-Man 3, but it's not. It's when Harry Osborn is at the party and he gets drunk and he's slapping Peter Parker. I thought that was so good, because it was like, the thing I love about Tobey Maguire is that even though he's Spider-Man, and even though he's technically one of the stronger superheroes in the Marvel Universe, he still is a clumsy, you know, gawky teen. And in social situations, he always comes out on the bottom. And here's his best friend completely humiliating him in front of all these people, and he doesn't know what to do, because he's still just a teenager, and he's like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. And the look on his face, I mean, I don't know. I think Tobey Maguire just, he can sell that better than anyone. I think just that he's so vulnerable and so, he's such a dork.
He plays also the perfect Peter Parker, I think.
Yes.
Like, it really does feel like the comics. I think that he maybe feels a little stiff at times as Spider-Man and doesn't have the, like, quippiness,
I'll give you that,
that we're used to.
Yeah.
He's not a bad Spider. He's not bad in the suit. I just think that he works way better as Peter.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, it was very fascinating going back and watching this movie 20 years after it was released. Can you believe it? 20 years ago.
Right? 18?
Almost.
Oh, yeah, 18.
Yeah.
I'm very bad at math. Okay, because Spider-Man 1 was 20 years ago.
Yeah, Spider-Man 1 is
18 years ago, yes. Okay,
Mike is calling
right.
us from the year 2024.
Yeah, exactly.
What's it like, Mike?
Oh, no, I don't want to know.
Anyway, exactly.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, but no, but it was fun to go back. There was a lot of energy to this movie. It was, I don't know, it was fun to see it. What can I say? I mean, we were just earlier comparing it to current Marvel and like other superhero films. I still think it's better, to be honest, than most Marvel Studios films. Marvel Studios, they've mastered, like Kristen said, they've kind of mastered the art of interweaving the humor and the drama and all that. Maybe a little bit better, but there's still something about this. There's a freshness and like Sam Raimi's energy that the way that he can mix campiness with humor, with action, with drama.
It feels more like a film.
Yeah.
I think that's the big difference. I think MCU movies, they're superhero like set pieces that are all kind of connected. Where this just feels like a movie. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just it wasn't trying to be a superhero film or this big thing that's connecting. It was just focusing on Spider-Man 2 and Doc Ock and Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm. That deserves a slow clap. All right, G.I. Jolie, what's your final word on this film?
I wish instead of that scene, she would have played back the tape of him being recorded telling her he was Spider-Man.
Oh, that would have been Jerry Maguire level. I couldn't have taken it. I would have bawled my eyes out.
That's why it's my favorite scene, because like immediately made me think of another solution for having that stupid car scene. He goes over to Mary Jane's house. They're having coffee, and they get into an argument, and she just hits play on her answering machine, and it's him telling her, here's the thing, Mary Jane, I'm Spider-Man. Like, come on, let's make this movie again, people. Anyway,
we just came up with... There you go, a better ending. Go ahead.
Final word, I love it. Like, again, it's my third favorite. So, third? Second favorite. Yeah,
I think you said second.
Do you know what? I was thinking about it more. I'm changing that. No Way Home is my second favorite. Just because I love how, spoiler, Tobey Maguire is in that one.
Mm-hmm. All right, Kristen, you get the last word.
The last word. I think what I love the most about this movie is that it shows us, I think I said this at the beginning, but it shows us like behind the happily ever after. Like it's like Peter coping with the realities of what it is to be Spider-Man. He has like his It's a Wonderful Life Jimmy Stewart moment of like, I'm gonna throw away this Spider-Man suit. I'm not gonna do it anymore. I'm gonna see what life is like when I just get to be myself. And then in the end, life is better. Life is better when you are Spider-Man and you are honest and you can, support your aunt and be honest with your best girl and defeat the bad guys. And yeah, I liked it. I don't know if it's up there. I have a real hard time ranking movies. It's my favorite one that I've watched today.
All right, there you go. Okay, we want to thank Kristen for joining us again. You're welcome to come back anytime. Don't wait another year and a half before you come back. We'll invite you back soon, okay? I'll be there. We'll do some comics this time for sure. Because I think I checked the records. Mm-hmm. You've done comics, then a cartoon, now you've done a movie. So we'll go back to the comics. There you go.
I'm game.
Awesome. Okay, we want to thank G.I. Jolie for joining us as well. And we want to remind, Bex Luthor couldn't be with us, unfortunately, this week, but she'll be back next week. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, we want to thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. It really helps when you leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts or on Twitter or our Facebook page. You can find us pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. So like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on our website at the Comic Book Syndicate.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio. Wherever you find podcasts, we're there. So yeah, please keep in touch. We want to keep that comics conversation going.
That's right. So until next Monday, see you later.